where we left off yesterday was you guys were working through number 2, B through Q, right? And I gave you guys a little while to do it. If you didn't get through it, that's fine. I want to keep going. I don't want to lag behind. So here's what I want to do is I just kind of want to talk about some of these as far as like how you would approach them. So let's just look at B real quick to make sure we're all on the same page. So when you look at B, what are you doing mathematically in your calculator? You're multiplying. What's the rules for multiplication in significant figures? It's the number with the least number of significant figures. So when you look at B, how many significant figures are in 4.29? All right, there are 3. What about 9.83? 3. So your answer must have how many? 3. When you calculated that, what did you come up with an answer to be in 3 significant figures? 42.2. And what was your unit on that if you didn't put it? Very good, meters squared. Okay, any questions on that? Real quick, I'm not going to do number E. I'm not going to do letter E. How many significant figures are in your answer? 3. And what was your unit on that? Meters. Very good. Why is it meters and not meters over hours squared? Very good. The hours would have canceled. Okay. All right. I do want to look at H. H. How many significant figures are in 5.6? 2. What about 6.23? 3. So your answer should have had how many? 2. And what was it to 2 significant figures? What? All right, let's look at it then, since we've got a little bit of a dispute. All right, so it was 5.6 times 6.23. I would say 35. The reason it's 35 is because the 8 makes that 4 round up. Okay. What would your unit be on that one? Meters cubed. Okay. All right, looking at K, it's let's see, it's 320 divided by 160. Now, how many significant figures are in 320? 2. We can do this. It'd be real nice if it would play along. All right, so I got 2 here. What about 160? 2. When you get your answer, the thing is exactly 2, but that's how many significant figures. So how do you turn it into 2 of them? Very good. 2.0, and what's your unit there? Meters per second. All right, any questions on any of the other ones? And again, if you got one, let's just go ahead and ask it. I don't mind doing it at all. Yes, sir. That was where I was heading next. Other than Q. Any other than Q? All right, let's look at Q. All right, so one of the rules, and again, I don't have them pulled up. One of the rules is when do you round to the correct number of significant figures? You round at the end of your calculation. Okay? So according to order of operations in Q, what would I do first as far as order of operations? I would do the parentheses first. So I would have 2.6 times 4.3 times 7.8. And that's going to give me that number. If you rounded here, how many significant figures would you round to? To 2 of them, right? Because all of those numbers have 2. But the problem is, am I doing any more calculations in this problem? Yes, so can I round here? No, I got to keep going. Now, what am I going to do with that number that's already up there? Divide it into that 3.56, right? Now, this is kind of a calculator thing. Some of you may or may not know this. If you have a graphing calculator, this is why sometimes they're nice to have. I can do divide, and then watch what I can do. I can go over here and grab that number and hit enter, and it just plops it in for me. Now, here's the cool part. Even if you don't have a graphing calculator, do you know you can still do that? All right, so I don't know where it is on your calculator, but everybody look down there near the equal sign. There should be an ANS button, and it's probably going to be a second function, which means it's a different color. Again, I don't know where it is on y'all's, but it should be on there somewhere. So watch what happens. If I hit second, and mine is where the negative sign is, if I hit that, it throws in this button. Okay, what that ANS stands for is answer. And it's the value that you previously calculated. Does that make sense? Okay, so I can just throw that in there, and that's the right number. Did anybody else know that already? If you did, awesome. If you didn't, I think this will help. Again, that's just learning your calculator. Okay, you don't have it on there? Yeah, let me see. I know that one has it on there. They must have taken it off, because it used to be on this one. Where Where is it? Where's... It used to be on here. I can't believe they took it off. Could have swore it was on here. Well, I stand corrected. I apologize. It's not on that one anymore. All right. So now we have to deal with sig figs. So I've got 3 and 5.56, and the rest of them are 2. So I need to round this number to 2 significant figures. So what would you round it to? Very good. Okay. I'm about to write on that with a Sharpie. So the answer, again, is 0.041. And what's your unit? Very good. Grams over cubic centimeters or centimeters cubed, however you want to say it. How many of you got that for that one? Good. If you didn't, it was probably the rounding issue, which is fine. No big deal. That's why we're practicing. All right. Any questions on any of the rest of those? All right. So let's go to the bottom set. Wednesday, you guys wrote the rules for addition and subtraction. And what was your rule for addition and subtraction? The least number of what? Decimal places. All right, so let's look at A. It says 67 plus 45. Do either of those two numbers have a decimal place? No. So what do? Add it up, and how many decimal places will you have? None. So what's 67 plus 45? Very good. So just 112. I'm not worried about significant figures. I'm only worried about decimal places. That's it. And here's the tricky part. What's your unit on this? Just centimeters. Okay? Please, please, please don't mess that part up. It's just centimeters. Okay? All right, now let's look at D. So I've got 6.74 plus 2.1. So how many decimal places does the first one have? 2. What about the second one? 1. So how many decimal places should your answer have? Just 1. So when you add these two numbers together, do you agree you would get 6.84? So what would that round to correctly? Wow, that was really bad. 8.84, my bad. Okay, it would round to 8.8. You drop the 4. And what's your unit on that? Grams, very good. Okay, all right, looking at the next one. Do either of those two numbers have decimal places? Nope, so you just subtract with no decimal. So what's 7,800 minus 2? Very good, 7798. And what's your unit? Centimeters. Okay. Right, kind of a side note question right here. What does that bar above that 0 and J stand for? And don't say repeating. It's significant, right? It's exactly a 0. No, that's weird, and that's honestly why I don't like the bar. Because you guys have known your entire life up to this point that a bar always meant repeating. And that's why I don't like it, but it is what it is. You just kind of have to deal with the rules. So, how many decimal places are in 720? None. What about 34.2? There's 1. So what's the least number? 0. All right, so what's 720 minus 34.2 to the correct answer? Say that again. So 686. Yep, so 686 kilograms. So 686 kilograms. All right, you guys do the rest of them. You guys do the rest of them. All right. I'm just going to kind of ask questions. We don't necessarily need to go over the answers. How many decimal places did you guys have in B? 2. Very good. How many did you have in E? None. All right, what about K? None. What about C? None. F? 1. Very good. I? What was your answer for I? 2.54. Because you're subtracting a really, really, really small number from a decently small number, but that small number isn't going to affect your answer there. So it is, again, still 2.54. And then what about L? How many decimal places? 3. Very good. Okay. Do I need to go over any of those? Everybody good on those? All right. So here's what I want you to do now. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and I want you to see if you can do all of the problems 4 through 9. I'm going to go ahead and tell you 9 is a challenge. If you get 9, you're doing really good, and 5 is a really gross question. Okay, so looking at A. So a box is 235.8 centimeters by 45.2 by 7.9 centimeters. It says its volume, and then it tells you what to do. So what are you doing with all of those numbers in your calculator? Multiplying. All right, so when you do this, you get how many? So what's the rule for multiplication? The least number of significant figures. Well, how many is in 235.8? 4. What about 45.2? There are 3, and then what about 7.9? 2. So your answer has to have how many? What is it to 2 significant figures? 80 what? 84,000. Everybody agree? Okay, all right, so 84,000. And what's your unit on that? Very good, cubic centimeters. All right, anybody got a question on that? Okay. All right, number 5. Again, this is kind of gross. A 934 gram cat ate an 84.2 gram rat, then coughed up a 3.672 gram hairball. How much does a cat weigh? It's a really gross question. Okay. All right, what are you doing mathematically with all of these? Okay, you're adding and then subtracting. But the deal is you've got to remember that you're doing 2 sets of calculations. So when do you round? At the end. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and throw up the calculator and we'll drag it over here. We'll clear this off. And let's see what, I may need your help with getting that last number over there. All right, so we said it was 900. Actually, let me turn it on. So clear 934 ate a rat. So is that add or subtract? That's add 82.4. Okay, that gives me that number. And then he threw up a hairball. So what is that? Subtract, as gross as that is. So then we're going to subtract 3.672. Is that the whole thing? Okay, I didn't know if there was another number back there. And now I'm going to subtract, and there's my answer. So which number, or what's your rules for addition or subtraction? Least number of decimal places. Well, how many does 934 have? None. Well, that means your answer can't have any decimal places. So what would your answer be correctly rounded? Okay. 1,013. Why 13? Because that 7 makes that 2 bump up. So it is 1,013. Say that one more time. Because you remember, you only round at the very end. Does that make sense? Well, no, because you got to look at the original data, just what's in the question, not what you not what you see in your calculator. Okay. All right. Next, so 6 is a 5,627 gram brick, and then it gives you all of the measurements. This is just like letter Q in problem 2. Again, you only round at the end, right? So I'm going to say 5.6 times 4.51 times 24.71 equals that. Do I round there or keep going? Keep going. I got one more calculation I got to do. And what am I going to do with that number? Divide it into the mass of the brick. So I'm going to say divide. I'm going to go up and grab that number and hit enter. And then there's the answer. And so we multiply and divide. So our rules are the least number of sig figs. How many significant figures are in that number? There are 4. How many about 5.60? There are 3. What about 4.51? There are 3. And what about 24.71? There are 4. So what's your least number? 3. So how do you round that number to 3 decimal places? Very good. 9.02. Okay. Does that make sense? And what's your unit on that? Very good. Grams per centimeter cube. All right, let's do number 7, then we'll jump down to number 9. I definitely want to look at 9. There's a reason why I want to look at it. All right, so number 7, it says a car travels a distance of 450 kilometers in a time of 3.42 hours. Its average velocity is, and it gives you this formula. What does V stand for in this formula? What does D stand for? Distance, and what does T stand for? Time. Had these words right here not been a part of the question, like that was out and that was out. So it said a car travels 450 kilometers in 3.42 hours. How would you have still known that this was your distance and that was your time? The units. Again, that's how important these things are. If you don't have the units on there, you don't know what it is. So what did you do to these two numbers? Divide. How many significant figures are in 450? 2. What about 3.42? 3. So what should your answer have been in? 2. And what was its average velocity? 130, and it was what? Kilometers per hour. Okay, kilometers per hour. Any questions on that? Sure, MPH, KPH, KMPH is fine. That's fine, because I know what those things mean. Okay. All right, number 9. How many of you got number 9? Awesome. Okay, let's see if we got it right, because this is a little weird. It says a 65-kilogram man is losing weight at the rate of 0.3612 kilograms per week. Is that a good rate? No, that's really bad. Okay, it's really bad. And then it says after 7.24 weeks, which is kind of a weird time frame, it says how much will he weigh? So what we're trying to figure out is how much he lost in 7.24 weeks, right? And then we're going to subtract it from his original mass. Would you all agree that's kind of the method we need to figure out? But the problem is that we've got to figure out how much he lost in 7.24 weeks. Okay? So if you didn't do it like this, I would highly encourage you to kind of follow me through this. And there's a reason I want you to do it this way. I promise you there's a reason. You'll see it later on. All right, so we've got 7.24. Would you be okay if I abbreviate weeks as WKS? All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up a set of parentheses. Now, this is a simple question. Mathematically, if I want weeks to cancel, where would I need to put it in that fraction? On the bottom. So I'm going to put weeks here. Now, this is where it gets kind of weird, and this is where you kind of have to think through what's going on. Can I go, and I'm going back to the question, is there a way to go from weeks to kilograms? Yes, and it's right here. This is what is called a ratio. Write that word underneath that little piece of information. It's called a ratio. And a lot of you have gotten to the point where when you say miles per hour, kilometers per hour, kilograms per week, you say it without understanding what it means. What does kilograms per week mean? So for every 1 week, it's that many kilograms. Would you agree with that? So watch what I mean by how we can use this as a ratio. So for every 1 week, you lose how much? Help me out. Okay? 0.3612 kilograms. Does that make sense? Okay, so we did it for 7.24 weeks. Now, you just told me a second ago that if I put weeks on top and on bottom, what happens to them? They cancel, and what am I left with? Kilograms. Does that make sense? Okay, now, this is what I'm going to need my calculator. I'm going to pull it up. And what am I going to do with those two numbers that are left? I'm going to multiply. All right, so let's see what we get. 7.24 times 0.6. Wow, my calculator skills are not good today. And that's what's going to pop up. But here's my question. Am I done calculating? So leave it alone. This is how much he lost in 7.24 weeks. Would you agree or disagree? All right, but I want to know how much he weighed, not how much he lost. So how do I find out how much he weighed? Subtract that from his original mass, which was what, 65? So 65 minus, we'll go up and grab that number, and then pull it down here. Now, what's your rules for addition and subtraction? Least number of decimal places. Well, 65 has no decimal places, so that's got to be my answer. So now when you look at this, what's his new mass? 62 what? Kilograms. Okay, does that make sense how to do that? How many of y'all got 62? Fantastic. Very good. Very, very, very good. Did y'all do it differently than that? Okay. That's fine. That's fine. And there's a reason I'm showing you this, because I'm telling you this little setup is going to come in major handy in the next few weeks, okay? All right, so we're done with that. We're finished with that. So I know we've got 15 minutes left. I want to take 10 minutes to do something really short.